Congressman Pocan, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Great. Thanks so much for being with us. We've got a new studio, and we're using an older version of our call screen software for the moment as we're trying to figure out a bug in our new one. And anyway, it's all good.
No problem at all.
So, in your opinion, a lot has happened since we talked last week, and I'm curious what you think are the most consequential things that have happened in the past week and what you're looking at coming up. What is on your radar screen?
Well, this is one of the weeks that we're back in district. So I've been doing town halls again in my district. I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and I did one actually yesterday in Paul Ryan's district. And whenever we do these town halls, we wind up getting a couple subjects that keep coming up. One being healthcare. People are still very, very concerned about what's going to ultimately happen. And then secondly, this new tax cut for the wealthy package that they're putting out there. Paul Ryan is going around Wisconsin telling everyone that they're doing this for the middle class. And, as long as he means by the middle class, the Trump family, the Trump cabinet, the members of Mar-a-Lago, and the top 1%, he's maybe accurate. But we're basically just trying to make sure people understand, this is probably the biggest lie that I've heard since I've been in Congress on how they're presenting this tax plan. And those are the two issues, along with things like North Korea and some other issues, but those are the big two that keep coming up.
Yeah. And do you expect that, how do you think this is going to play out legislatively?
Well, I think the real question on this healthcare thing is, once again, Donald Trump is, to no one's surprise, being inconsistent. So, at one point last week, he took away the subsidy to insurance companies to make sure that, people can have access to insurance through the Affordable Care Act. Then when there's a deal between Patty Murray and Lamar Alexander, he at first said he supported it. Probably didn't have a clue what he was actually saying. Then he said he didn't support it. Now I think this morning he said he didn't support it. We'll see if he goes back and forth a few more times. But, at least someone is trying to do something to address the 20 million people that otherwise could lose their health insurance if the Republicans get their way. So I think that's one thing we're watching especially closely. And then when it comes to tax policy, already Paul Ryan is starting to change some of the language they've been using as far as maybe it won't take away the deduction for children, I guess is most recently what he's saying while he's here in Wisconsin. And so, again, this is a terrible plan that's going to benefit only the wealthiest in this country, and he's trying to figure out how to reel back the terribleness of what their idea is.
When you're doing your town halls in Paul Ryan's district, do people get it that the Republican Party is basically only representing the interests of the wealthy and powerful? I mean, is there in your sense of it, is there a broad understanding of that?
I'll tell you, people, I think, are very upset with Paul Ryan in his district. I mean, he's completely ignored them, hasn't done a public town hall for over 700 days. It's, becoming a couple years since he's done one. And, he's the one who's putting out these terrible provisions to drop 20 million people from their health insurance. He's the one out advocating for a tax plan that's not going to benefit very many people in the 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin. And I think they're starting to really connect with that. I think a big part of my job this week is explaining Paul Ryan keeps saying this is for the middle class. Donald Trump kept saying he's not going to benefit from this. And they're just both lying. There's no other way to put it about what their plan does. So I think we're just trying to make sure people fully understand how much their member of Congress lies to them, and then they can make a decision next November how to deal with that.
Yeah. Back on March 29th, 1952, Harry Truman spoke to this issue of the Republican Party and taxes. May I play a clip for you? I'd like to get your thoughts on Harry Truman's era Republicans versus today's. Here is former President of the United States, Harry Truman.
Now I want to say something very important to you about this issue of morality in government. It is just as immoral to use the lawmaking power of the government to enrich the few at the expense of the many as it is to steal money from the public treasury. That is stealing money from the public treasury. Legislation that favored the greed of monopoly and the trickery of Wall Street was a form of corruption that did the country 4 times as much harm as Teapot Dome ever did. Private, selfish interests are always trying to corrupt the government in this way. Powerful financial groups are always trying to get favors for themselves. Now, the Democratic administration has been fighting against these efforts to corrupt the powers of government. We haven't always won, but we have never surrendered, and we never will.
And then he goes on to talk about the Republican
For all these
Party.
years, we've been fighting to use our natural resources for the benefit.
He goes on from there. He wraps it up with this kind of epic rant about the Republican Party, but the clip was getting too long there. So anyhow, your thoughts on basically his rant at the end. He says the Republican Party stands for vested interest in the wealthy and always has and always will.
Yeah, I wish there was a shred of that kind of morality in the current Republican Party when it comes to, I think the tax plan is still the best example, Tom. I mean, they are outright presenting complete falsehoods about what this plan is about, and now their most recent one they're trying to spin is that this will create all this growth, and that's why it's going to be better instead of adding to the deficit or to the debt. And, this is just an outrageous lie to say when the University of Chicago says that from what they can tell, this plan for a middle-class family making $50,000 with 3 children will wind up paying $1,400 more in taxes. So you can get rid of the estate tax that affects about 2 out of every 1,000 people in a given year. This is clearly redistribution of wealth from the bottom up, and Paul Ryan this week was claiming that we're using class warfare against them. And I would argue it's Paul Ryan who's conducting the warfare against all the rest of us.
Yeah, what's his name? The billionaire investor made that comment. Yes, there's class warfare. My class is declared war, and we are winning. I don't recall, that wasn't George Soros, that was Warren Buffett who said that. And it appears to be the case. It absolutely appears to be the case. Congressman, you still with us?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think maybe at the half-hour break, I'm going to switch phones because I'm getting an echo on this one. So I think it might be my home phone.
Oh, okay. All righty. Well, we have just a minute till the break, and then we can pick up phone calls here. Do you think that there is, Steve Mnuchin came out this morning and said if Congress doesn't pass tax reform, you're going to see the Dow crash. I think we're going to see the Dow crash anyway, for a whole bunch of other reasons unrelated to that. But do you think that and his definition of tax reform, of course, is tax cuts for the rich. Do you think it's going to pass?
I think they're going to have a hard time with the current form of it. I mean, in the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised that we wind up just doing some out-and-out tax cuts that'll still largely affect the wealthy the most. Even on their current proposal, it's been estimated that in 10 years, 80% of it is going to go to the top 1% and 2%. We already know that that's the current plan. And I think, because of some of the exemptions, they're having problems with some of the Senate Republicans. They may have to just come through with a smaller tax cut. But again, it's still not going to be for the middle class. And we just have to be vigilant in fighting. I'm with the organization that says, not one penny for the wealthy. And there's an organization with a lot of groups part of that. I think we need to follow their efforts.